Congressman Wesley Hunt and U.S. Senate candidate. Thank you so much and welcome back to Eye on Politics.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
So, have to ask you about the government shutdown and the Senate, 8 Senate Democrats who have now started the process. They want to reopen the government. Your thoughts on that? And I know this is different slightly than the CR you voted for back in September. Are you going to vote for this?
Of course I am, and it's slightly different, but virtually the same thing, and we did not have to do this for 40 days in order to get to this conclusion, in my humble opinion. I am going to vote to open the government. I think that vote should happen on Wednesday or Thursday is what I am told. And again, you know, the political theater when it comes to playing with people's lives has got to come to an end, finally. And I look forward to ending this shutdown and getting back to work.
So let's talk about your primary race. The polls have shown, it seems like it's a dead heat between you and everybody else in this race, plus undecideds, right?
Yeah.
So my question to you is, what is the number one reason that Republican primary voters, if they don't like Ken Paxton, why should they vote for you over Senator Cornyn?
Well, look, I just really got in this race to give the primary voter a true conservative option. Look, at the end of the day, for the past few months, John Cornyn has spent almost $50 million in this race before the filing deadline, and that's actually a month away from now. $50 million before November the 1st, and still he is polling now in the mid-20s, which tells me that there's an appetite for someone like me to get into this race. And also keep in mind, you talk about the undecideds. How are there this many undecideds with a gentleman that's been in the Senate for 24 years and the current Attorney General from Texas? There's still a lot of people that still are looking for another candidate that can win the primary election. I was the first person in the country to endorse President Trump. I was a top surrogate for President Trump. I stuck with him from day one. I'm still with him, but also has the ability to win the general election against any generic Democrat. And right now, I'm outperforming both Ken and both John in the general election against any generic Democrat. And my name ID is at 73%. So we've been able to accomplish all of this in just 4 weeks.
So what is it that you bring to the table? In other words, why should people vote for you? What are you bringing that the others don't?
Well, first of all, when I compare myself to Senator Cornyn, I am not a Bush-era establishment Republican. I am an America First patriot. I came in under the doctrine of President Trump and what he was able to do with this MAGA movement, especially here in Texas, and he won by 15.7 points, which means that the people here in Texas want somebody in the image of President Trump that's going to lead with that same strong America First type vigor about them. That clearly is not John Cornyn. And I'll also say this, the United States Senate is not a retirement community. John Cornyn has been around for 24 years. It's time to retire. It's time for the next level of leadership, the next era of leadership to step into the fray and lead us into the future. Look, our Secretary of State's in his early 50s. Our Secretary of War is 45 years old. Our Vice President is 41 years old. Now, I always joke and I always say President Trump is surrounding himself with these young people because we're the only ones that can even kind of keep up with them because he's a different kind of person. But I think he also realizes the need for young leadership now to step into the fray because when President Trump is gone in 2 years, who's going to carry on the mantle and who's going to carry on the banner? And it's not John Cornyn.
But Senator Cornyn was asked about your comments, and he said, I work very closely with 79-year-old President Trump.
Yeah, so if John Cornyn is going to compare himself to the vigor of President Trump, I find it to be absolutely hilarious. I'm a person that campaigned with President Trump, and I did one swing with him where I met him in Chicago. We flew from Chicago to Colorado, Colorado to California, California back to Las Vegas, all in one day, him giving speeches the entire time. And again, I don't know how I was able to keep up with him. John Cornyn is not Donald Trump.
Last question, affordability seems to be an issue that people had in the election, and I'm wondering, how do you solve people's concerns as far as pricing? Obviously, inflation is down from 2022, record inflation over 9%, but it's still at 3%, and people are still unhappy with prices at grocery stores, et cetera.
Yes.
So how do you ease their concerns? What plan do you
So inflation is down. We have to let the cake bake. We have to let President Trump continue to do for the economy like he did the first time he ran. Take the brakes off, get rid of all the regulations, get rid of all the restrictions, allow inflation to continue to come down, and then eventually in Q1 and Q2 of next year is when you're going to see it really get good for the average everyday American. This is why President Trump worked so quickly when he first got into office. If you recall how rapid he was moving with the tariffs and changing the things and changing the ills of the previous 4 years, that's because by the time we got to the midterms, we were already going to be in good shape. And if you would have waited, it would have taken too long. So again, I think the process is working. We have to undo 4 years of a disaster in order for us to get to a good place before the midterms. You got to trust the process.
Congressman Wesley Hunt, thank you so much.
Of course, thank you for having me as always.
Appreciate it.
Of course.